So it seems very auspicious to be talking about bodhicitta, loving kindness and compassion at this time of year, right after Christmas. That's the whole theme of Christmas. So here we get to learn how to do that, how to become loving and compassionate. Okay, so let's begin as usual with the prayers of paying homage to the Buddha and so on, taking refuge. And then I'll lead a meditation on what we talked about last week.
To the teacher endowed, transcendent destroyer, one thus gone, foe destroyer, completely and fully awakened one, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, one not of bliss, nor the world's supreme guide of beings to be tamed. Teacher of gods and humans, to you the Buddha endowed, transcendent destroyer, glorious conqueror, Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings and go for refuge. When, O supreme among humans, you were born, this earth you pay 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I bow. With pure bodies, form supremely fine, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain. Fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner the best, supreme guide, to you I bow. With the supreme sign's face like the spotless moon, color like gold, to you I bow. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are not incomparable, wise one, to you I bow. Great, compassionate protector, all-knowing teacher, field of merit and good qualities, vast as an ocean, to the Tathagata I bow. Through purity, freeing from attachment, through virtue, freeing from the lower realms. Unique, supreme, ultimate reality, to the Dharma that is peace I bow. Having freed themselves, showing the path to freedom too, well established in the trainings. The holy field endowed with good qualities, to the Sangha I bow. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind completely, this is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, a bubble. A dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through this spirit may sentient beings attain the state of all seeing, subdue the false, and be delivered from the ocean of cyclic existence perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. This ground anointed with perfume, flowers strewn Mount Meru, 4 lands, sun and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered to you. May all beings enjoy this pure land. Venerable holy gurus, in the space of your truth body, from billowing clouds of your wisdom, let fall the rain of the profound and extensive Dharma, in whatever form is suitable for subduing sentient beings. Idam Guru Ranna Mandalakam Niryatayami. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings.
So spend a few more minutes making sure your mind is really settled down in the present, focused on these teachings, and that you have the most suitable motivation, that of bodhicitta, wanting to benefit all beings and wanting to follow the path to enlightenment, to be able to benefit all beings in the best possible way. Okay, so last week we looked at the topic of seeing all beings as one's mother. This is said to be one of the most difficult meditation topics in the Lamrim, but it's also very important. It's said to be essential if we really want to develop bodhicitta and follow the bodhisattva's path. So we have to at least try and not put it aside thinking it's too hard. So for some people, it may be enough that the Buddha mentioned this in the sutras, saying that he can't see anyone who hasn't been your mother and so on. And then generations of Buddhist masters from the time of the Buddha have repeated this right down to the present day. So the teachers we learn from nowadays also talk about all beings as our mothers. And so for some people that might be enough to accept that. So just check your own experience. Are you able to feel that, for example, every person sitting around you in this room and every other being in the universe was your mother because the Buddha and other Buddhist masters have said this? So if you do have doubt, that's normal because we can't remember our past lives. We can't recognize the people around us as having been our mothers. So another approach is to use logic or reasoning. And that is that our mind or mental continuum, mind stream, is a stream of individual moments of awareness, of consciousness. And all of these are non-physical, non-material. They're not made of material particles like molecules, atoms, and so on. And our mind is impermanent, and like all other impermanent phenomena, it depends on causes and conditions. So what is the cause of the mind? What is the cause of our momentary experiences? And remember, cause and effect need to be concordant. So something material, something physical like the brain, can't be the cause of something non-material like the mind, in the same way that pumpkin seeds can't be the cause of rose bushes and cats can't give birth to turtles. There's just a lack of concordance between those causes and effects. So what can give cause to the mind is a previous moment of mind. So our mind at this very moment, whatever awareness experience we're having at this very moment, comes from the previous moment of mind. So its cause was a previous moment of mind, that which is clear and knowing, non-material and cognizant, aware. And we can continue going back in time. Each moment of mind arises from its previous moment, and that arose from its previous moment, and so on and so forth, going back through today, yesterday, last month, last year, and so on. So each moment of mind arises, ceases, and then gives rise to the next moment of mind. And if we continue tracing these moments of mind further and further back, right to the beginning of our life. So the first moment of mind of this life, its cause would also have to be a previous moment of mind. And that can't be the minds of the parents, our mother and father, because mind isn't something that can kind of split off and, go from one person into another person. And also, if our mind came from our parents' minds, then we would have all of their memories and all of their experiences in our mind, which isn't the case. And so the cause of the first moment of mind, our mind in this life, was a previous mind of another person. So there was another person who lived their life and then died, and their mind, their consciousness separated from that body and entered our the fertilized egg, combination of sperm and egg of our parents inside of our mother's womb. So the mind of this life came from the mind of another person, another life. And this too can be difficult to accept. So another approach is to look into people who can remember past lives. There's lots of stories, lots of cases of people, usually children, young children, who are able to remember past lives and even provide details about their past life, which can sometimes be verified. They also sometimes have knowledge and skills from their past life that they didn't acquire in this life. Nobody around them knew those things, and yet the child themselves knows those things. So this can help us be more open to the existence of previous lives. The Buddha's knowledge about past lives comes from his own first-hand experience. By purifying his mind, developing his mind, he gained memory, total recall of all his own previous lives, and he could see that we can go back further and further and further, and it's not even possible to find the beginning of them. And he was also able to see that every other being was the same. We all had past lives. And in most of those past lives, we had mothers that carried us in their womb, gave birth to us, took care of us when we were small and helpless. So where are those mothers now? They are all around us, sitting in this room and out there in the world, out there in the universe. So it is difficult to really accept this, but hopefully you recognize you can't disprove it. We can't be 100% sure that it's not true, which means that it could be true. So see if you can at least accept that. Okay, so we left off on page 203. So right at the top of the page, this is the next point of the sevenfold training, sevenfold cause and effect method. So there's 7 of these preceded by equanimity. And so we're up to number 3 now, meditating on repaying the kindness of our mothers. So after contemplating that every being has been our mother and hopefully getting more open to that, and then contemplating the kindness of our mothers, using the kindness of our mother in this life as an example. And then now the next step, it's kind of a natural process that when we can really recognize the kindness of somebody, what they have done for us, we naturally feel that we need to repay their kindness. Whenever they are in need of help, then we just spontaneously want to help them. Okay, so he says, there's nothing more shameful than carelessly neglecting your kind, suffering, protectorless mothers just because you do not recognize them anymore, owing to birth, death, and transmigration, and to being preoccupied with freeing yourself from cyclic existence. Okay, so he does acknowledge that, yeah, we don't recognize everybody as our mothers, but, the whole process of dying and then going through the bardo, the intermediate state, into the next life, and then starting off brand new person in this life. So kind of like a lot of changes happening, and it's natural that we would forget and not be able to recognize our previous mothers. And also we tend to be self-centered, focused on me, my happiness, and have less regard for others, even our family and friends of this life. We tend to feel I am more important than them. And so we're very occupied with our own happiness and liberation from suffering. So, of course, with mothers and fathers and so forth from past lives, we wouldn't have strong concern about them. But this is shameful, he said. This is shameful to neglect our previous mothers. And then there's a quote from Letter to a Student. I think that's Chandra Goman. He says, my kin are drowning in the ocean of cyclic existence and seem to have fallen into an abyss. So those are two sort of very powerful analogies to the situation of sentient beings, that they sometimes say samsara, cyclic existence, is like a huge ocean that's filled with all kinds of dangers, sea monsters and sharks and whales and so on, and storms. And yeah, it's not a nice place at all. It's very terrifying, very difficult. And then an abyss. So that's another analogy, when there's like a cliff and then a deep drop, thousands of feet. So falling into an abyss where there's nothing down there to help you. So those are two analogies to the situation of sentient beings. If I neglect them, unrecognized owing to birth and death and transmigration, and seek liberation alone, nothing is more shameful. So if we are only concerned about our own happiness, our own liberation, getting ourselves out of this situation of samsara, not concerned with helping others, then this is considered shameful. Thus, you should take the responsibility to reciprocate their kindness, thinking, if neglecting such kind beings is inappropriate, even for the ill-mannered, how can I reconcile it with my own ways? So we can just check how we feel when we become aware that somebody is not appreciative of the kindness they have received and doesn't repay the kindness. Sometimes that happens with us. We treat somebody with kindness and then they don't show any thanks and don't help us when we ask them to. So we probably feel pretty unhappy about that, and what a nasty person. Or if we see someone who is not appreciative of their parents, who put a huge amount of time and energy into taking care of them, and then they just kind of turn their back on their parents and don't help them when they need help, we probably don't have a good feeling about that, right? That's considered just, really, I don't know, what would we call that? We don't want to use nasty words, but it's ill-mannered. Yeah, it's not the right way to be. Ungrateful, yeah, just not the right way to be. So we probably don't feel that that's a good way to be, that we want to emulate. But no, that is not the way to be. Okay, then he says, you may wonder, well then, how should I repay the benefit? Whatever pleasures and riches of cyclic existence your mothers obtain, they are misled by all of them. So that kind of makes it sound like, we shouldn't even try to give them any temporal happiness, samsaric happiness and pleasure. I don't think he means that. Because of course, if they're hungry, if anyone is in need of food, then we should provide them with food. If they need clothes, provide them with clothes, and so on. So whatever they need, whatever they wish for, to bring them temporal happiness, we should do what we can to provide them with those, and not think, that's just samsaric stuff, that's not real happiness, that's just another kind of suffering, so don't bother with that. Because for one thing, not everyone is ready, not everyone's mind is ready to hear the teachings on how to get out of samsara, how to get to enlightenment. So We can't expect that right from the beginning we can teach them the path and they're going to be open to that and want to follow that. So we first have to provide them with their temporal needs and happiness, help them achieve happiness as much as possible, and then gradually, when they're ready, lead them on the path out of samsara. One time I think I was in Berkeley, and I was giving a talk about loving kindness, metta, and how we meditate on wishing happiness for other beings. And it's also nice, he mentions it also in here, to imagine even giving them the things that will make them happy. And it's such a beautiful meditation, beautiful practice. And at the end of the talk, during the question and answer, a woman put up her hand and said that her mother is never satisfied with what she has. She's always wanting more and more and more and better and better and better. So she asked, when I'm, developing loving kindness for my mother, does that mean I should wish for her to have all of those things that she wants? So I never thought of that before, but I thought that's a really good question. And what came to me was, wish her to have the things that will bring her happiness, but wish her to have satisfaction. Because we want them not just to have things, stuff, but we want them to have the inner qualities that really bring happiness. We understand that just having a lot of money and a lot of clothes and so on isn't really happiness. So what we really wish for others is for them to have these inner qualities of contentment and peace of mind and non-attachment and non-anger and so on. So that's the real thing that we wish for. So when we're meditating on love, loving kindness, it's good to go beyond just the material things, but wish them to have all the good qualities of their mind that will bring them real happiness and peace, and eventually the realizations they need to get themselves out of samsara. So that's what he's saying here, that what they really need is to get out of samsara, and even further than that, even get to enlightenment. So then he says, thus you should repay the benefit thinking. In the past, under the power of the evil spirits that are the mental afflictions which possessed me, I produced all kinds of additional sufferings in those who were already suffering by nature, like pouring salt in the wounds of those severely injured. Okay, so there you're thinking about how, because of my own afflictions, I sometimes just gave suffering to others instead of happiness, like pouring, they're already suffering, and I gave them even more suffering, like pouring salt in their wounds. I will establish all those who, out of love, have benefited me in the happiness of liberation, nirvana. So, contemplating how they're suffering and all the different sufferings they have in samsara, then generating this wish to give them happiness, whatever temporal happiness they need, and eventually a more long-term happiness of nirvana, liberation. In brief, your own kind mother is restless and insane, blind and without anyone to guide her, and is stumbling with each step as she approaches a fearsome abyss. So that's a very powerful analogy, and we You know, you could do that in meditation. Imagine your mother of this life. Maybe she has dementia, and she's in some kind of home facility, but she manages to get out. That happens sometimes. They walk out, right? And they're wandering around, and she's also blind, so can't even see where she's going. And maybe she's going in the direction of a cliff or an overpass to a freeway that doesn't have a, you know, a high guardrail, and she's kind of stumbling along, confused, blind, can't see where she's going, doesn't know where she's going. So if you saw your mother in that kind of situation, maybe you're on your way to an appointment or something else. So would you think, okay, I hope somebody will take care of her. I have to go to my appointment. I'm going to the supermarket to get some ice cream. Whatever. I mean, that would be insane, right? To say, no, I can't help my mother right now. I'm busy. So any sane person, any person who does appreciate the kindness of their mother would just drop whatever they were doing and just rush immediately to, you know, get her out of that situation, bring her to safety. And I think even people whose mothers weren't very kind, who may have been neglectful or even unkind, I think they would still, in that kind of situation, think, this is my mother, okay? Even if she wasn't so kind, but the fact that she gave birth to me, she's the one who brought me into this world, she gave me my life. So even that is kindness. And so, yeah, and then if our mother was kind, if we did experience a lot of kindness from her, all the more would we just drop everything and do whatever we can to save her. And yeah, so this is kind of an analogy because sentient beings are restless in the sense that their mind is not in control. They're confused. They're insane in the sense that they have a lot of delusions, mental afflictions, blind in the sense of not seeing the true nature of things, even conventionally, not having a good understanding of how things are, and without anyone to guide her. You know, most beings don't have spiritual teachers guiding them. And then approaching an abyss that is like the lower realms, unfortunate states of rebirth. So this is a good analogy for the situation that most sentient beings are in. And he says, if she cannot put her hope in her child, meaning me, who can she count on? If it is not for the child to free the mother from fear, who else should do it? Likewise, owing to the evil spirits of the mental afflictions, the minds of sentient beings who have been our mothers are agitated rather than in the natural state. I was curious about that term, natural state. That's another translation was peace of mind. So I guess it just means a state of mind where you're kind of at peace, at ease. Or maybe it means more than that, like the true nature of mind, being in touch with that. They are insane and without control over their consciousness, lack eyes to see the path to higher states and definite goodness, and lack a true friend, a guide for the blind. In each instant, they stumble from being distracted by faulty behavior and wander toward the abyss of cyclic existence in general and the lower rebirths in particular. as you see them, you should reflect that these mothers necessarily put their hopes in their child, and that it is also for the child to get their mother out of there. Okay, so if we do have the sense that these are my mothers, all these beings who are in this dreadful situation of samsara, they have been my mother, just like my mother of this life. And so just as we would drop everything, do everything we can to protect our mother of this life from dangers, we try to generate that same feeling with regard to mothers who've cared for us in past lives. You should repay their kindness by definitely getting them out of cyclic existence. The Compendium of Trainings, Shantideva's text says, insane with afflictions, blinded by ignorance, on a path with many abysses, stumbling with every step, myself and others are always subject to sorrow. Beings are the same in suffering. So we're in this situation too. And that's why we're trying to get ourselves out. But to turn our backs on other beings, not remembering what they have done for us, not being grateful and appreciative and wanting to help them, is just not appropriate. Okay, then he says, in view of this, although it is indeed said to be inappropriate to look for faults in others, and you should marvel at the slightest positive quality when you see it, here it is inappropriate. Sorry, here it is appropriate to focus on misery. So I guess that's just in case somebody says, oh, but we're always supposed to see the good in others and, focus on their good qualities, not their faults. So yeah, most of the time that is true. Yeah, we should try to focus on the good qualities of others. But if we do that, then we might be blind to the actual situation that they are in, and that could impede the development of compassion and love. So once I asked one of my teachers, because in Tantra, like in the Chenrezig practice that you're doing, the practice involves seeing yourself and seeing all other beings as Chenrezig, right? So if you do that, then how can you develop compassion? If you see everybody as already Chenrezig, already fully enlightened, completely free of all negative qualities, fully developed in all positive qualities, then what does that do for your compassion and your bodhicitta? And so this teacher said, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, we do sometimes need to think about the fact that they're suffering and they have afflictions and so on and so forth. So I think you have to, tailor your practice at different times to different needs that you yourself have. And so, yeah, it would be kind of, not so helpful to our development of compassion and bodhicitta to always, 100% of the time, think every single being is Chenrezig, every single being is Manjushri, every single being is Tara, because then they don't really need my help anymore. Okay, any questions about that? Another thing I was thinking was, we use this term sentient beings, all mother sentient beings, all sentient beings are suffering, we have to get them out of suffering and so on. But strictly speaking, not all sentient beings are suffering because the term sentient beings refers to anyone who's not a Buddha, right? anyone below a Buddha. That includes arhats. So they're out of samsara. They don't have any more suffering. They don't have any more afflictions in their mind. And also the bodhisattvas on the various stages. And on the last 3 stages, the last 3 grounds, they're called the pure grounds, they're at the same level as arhats. So they have eliminated all their afflictive obscurations, no more afflictions, no more suffering. They still have the obscurations that prevent omniscience, the cognitive obscurations. So they still have those, and arhats do as well. But those don't cause kind of gross suffering. So strictly speaking, not all sentient beings are in this kind of situation, but most are. Most of the sentient beings, especially the ones that we relate to, we see around us in the world and so on. So just, yeah, we're specifically talking about those sentient beings who are still ordinary beings, who haven't realized emptiness, haven't even started on the path. So they are the ones who are in this very unfortunate situation. And we are trying to develop compassion and love and bodhicitta in relation to them. That makes sense?
I'm finding it a little bit difficult to differentiate between this step of repaying the kindness and the future steps of love, compassion, and the great resolve. Because there seems like there's elements of love and compassion and the great resolve within this repaying their kindness step.
Well, it is a step-by-step process. And so I think this step mainly is, it just sort of naturally follows on when you recognize the kindness that someone has given. And that's what we're trying to do in the previous steps. Okay, everyone has been my mother, even, Karuna the kitty has been my mother. Okay. And then what did she do when she was my mother? She, like my mother of this life, she did this and this and this and this and that. And so you're working on that, then, just kind of naturally you feel, well, I need to do something to help her in return. So this step is more contemplating, what can I do to help her? Okay, I can give her nice food and toys and play with her and so on, but that's very limited. So ideally, the best way to help her is to help her get out of samsara. So we're kind of contemplating the ways that we can help her. And that then will lead to the next steps of love and compassion. I think they kind of flow into each other, but as you're following these steps one by one, they do. Because actually these first 3 steps of thinking of all beings as one's mother, and the kindness, and then repaying the kindness, it said that contemplating those 3 steps will give rise to this type of love I talked about last time, called, sometimes it's called affectionate love, or heartwarming love, or endearing love, love that sees others as beautiful, as attractive. So they say it's similar to the kind of feeling a mother has for her child, seeing her child as very, very dear and precious. And then, so that is the way Geshe Zopa explained it, that will just arise naturally if we really meditate on these first 3 steps. Then with the 4th step, meditating on love, then we're cultivating our love, our wish for happiness for others. We're working on cultivating that more and more and more and more until it becomes great love. So, I guess there's some elements here that are similar to love and compassion and the, what's it called here? This extraordinary attitude. but you're not quite at that point yet. You're working in that direction, but not there yet. Anyone else?
I think it's helpful for my own complacency because of such a precious life that I have, that these analogies that put sentient beings in these states where they're blind and they're old and they're confused, they're walking along a cliff, I find that extremely, it opens up my eyes to this misunderstanding that this is okay, all of this is okay, and we're all doing fine. So I appreciate this. And knowing even the mother of this life that we may have difficulty with, seeing her in this position, and then to be able to extrapolate that, it breaks my heart. I mean, that's where I get to sometimes when I can hold this long enough.
Yeah.
So I find the analogies of this level of treachery, this level of danger to be really, really helpful.
Yeah, it's in these scriptures from Chandragoman and Shantideva, and maybe it's in the Buddha Sutras as well. Maybe that's the origin of this kind of analogy.
So on the other side of just what she said is, it took me a long time when I would hear these teachings to think, okay, I need to do something now, but I didn't have the skill to, and I still don't for many things. And so to separate out action right now versus transforming my mind to think in this way was a helpful separation for me, because I don't have the skillful means to, especially the people I'm closest to maybe, because there's a lot of attachment and whatever and confusion and, all kinds of habits. So to really keep clear what I am able to do right now, work on myself. That's what I can do.
Yeah, so yeah, this needs to be balanced with that. Like, okay, I really want to help all these mothers who are in this terrible situation, but realistically, what am I able to do? So we have to be in touch with our abilities. And I mean, we do what we can, here and now, we do what we can to help others, but we also have to recognize our limitations and be comfortable with our limitations and not beat ourselves up because we can't do more. And I think going back to that topic of equanimity, like we were talking about last week, the way it's explained in the Theravada tradition is to contemplate karma and how all beings are the owners of their karma. They're experiencing the results of their karma. So if we contemplate that, get really familiar with that, that will also help us to calm down. Recognize, sometimes you really try to help somebody, you do all you can to help somebody, and it doesn't work, and they're still in trouble, still suffering. So, yeah, not to get stressed about that or beat yourself up about that. They are experiencing the results of their karma, just as we are. And even if a Buddha was here in this moment, they wouldn't necessarily be able to help that person. So they say the power of karma and the power of Buddha are equal, I think. So, yeah. So that's really helpful as well to keep a more calm mind and not get stressed and put pressure on ourselves, beat ourselves up because we're not able to do more. So yeah, I guess it's a balance. We do as much as we can, but also recognize our limitations and not push ourselves to do more. Sometimes hard to know that balance, where you're being realistic or you're being lazy, finding excuses.
I think on that same line, for me, it's very highly motivating to then, I have to develop bodhicitta, which I think is the point. So to be clear in my mind that running home and saving the family is not going to work, But someday, if I keep on this path and do what I'm committing myself to do, I will be able to do something. And that is, I find, is a very balancing thing in my own mind when I get hung up and wanting to save them.
Okay. Then, okay, next point. This is another outline heading, actual generation of that mind that strives for the welfare of others. Okay, so after cultivating this appreciation of others, seeing that they have a likable aspect, then going further and generating the mind that really wants to strive for their welfare. So this has 3 points. The last 3 points, it's point 4, 5, and 6. Meditating on love, meditating on compassion, and meditating on the extraordinary attitude. So meditating on love, Jampa, she's coming soon today or tomorrow, our Venerable Jampa coming. And Maitri, that's a Sanskrit name, and Metta, Pali term. That's love. So the object of love is sentient beings who do not possess happiness. So again, this is those sentient beings who are still stuck in samsara. Its expressions are the thoughts, how wonderful it would be if they were to meet with happiness. May they meet with happiness, and I will make them meet with happiness. So those are in the long version of the prayer of the 4 immeasurables. Yeah. There's kind of 4 different parts to each of them. And so the first one is just how wonderful that would be if they could have happiness. And that's said to be the immeasurable wish. And then may they meet with happiness is going a little further. That's immeasurable aspiration. And then I will make them meet with happiness. So there you're taking on, they call it a resolution. You're making a resolution. I'm going to do it. And then the last in the prayer is asking for blessings, asking for inspiration from spiritual teachers to help me do that. As regards the benefits, the King of Concentration's sutra says, many kinds of offerings without measure in myriad neighboring pure fields constantly offered to the most excellent beings do not equal a fraction of the mind of love. That is to say, the merit of generating love is much greater than that of constantly making incredibly vast offerings to the field that is the highest object, meaning like Buddha's, the 3 jewels. So meditating on love, generating love is more meritorious, more virtuous than making tons of offerings to all the Buddhas. Also, array of qualities in Manjushri's Buddha field explains in the land called Ornamented by 1,000, I never heard of that place before, but apparently it's a pure land, of the great king Buddheshvara in the northeastern quarter, sentient beings possess a happiness similar to the happiness of fully ordained monks who have entered cessation. Now, cessation here doesn't refer to the 3rd noble truth, but there's a kind of meditative state that's called absorption of cessation, and it's very complicated because different schools explain it differently. We won't go into that, but anyway, it's kind of a meditative state in which You don't have sort of coarse feelings and discriminations and so on. So coarse minds and mental factors. So it's a very peaceful, calm state. So anyway, the point is, sentient beings in that realm have incredible happiness. If a mind of love toward all sentient beings generated in this land, and this land means here in our world, for as little as the duration of a finger snap, I can't make a noise, but that's pretty short, produces far more merit than someone celibate practicing pure conduct there, meaning that Pure Land, for 1 trillion years. What need is there to mention that of abiding in that mind day and night? So anyway, in our world, to generate, or even for a short moment, generating a thought of love, wishing all beings to have happiness, that creates more merit than someone practicing pure conduct in that Pure Land for 1 trillion years. Then Nagarjuna's precious garland. So this is a list, this contains a list of benefits of cultivating love. First he says, giving 300 pots of food 3 times daily does not equal the merit of love maintained for the duration of just 1 moment. So generating love is even more meritorious than giving lots of food away. And so here he mentions 8 benefits. So the first is, you will be loved by gods, devas, and humans. So gods is number 1, humans is number 2. They will protect you, that's number 3. And you will have mental happiness, number 4, and much pleasure, number 5. That's like physical happiness, pleasure. Poison and weapons will no longer harm you, number 6. You will achieve your goals without effort, number 7. And will be born in the Brahma worlds. Those are like in the form realm. That's number 8. Even if you do not reach liberation, you will win the 8 qualities of love. And in the Pali Canon, there's a list of 11 benefits. So this is from the Buddha. It's in volume 5, Mind of in Praise of Great Compassion, page 23. So I'll just, some of these are the same, but there's some extra ones. So this is what the Buddha said in the Pali Canon. First, he's saying those who practice the liberation of mind with love regularly, they will sleep well, number 1, free from restless sleep and apnea. So I wondered, did the Buddha actually say apnea? No. In the sutra, it just says they will sleep well. No, they will sleep peacefully. You'll have peaceful sleep. And I kind of wondered, if you putting apnea there, does that kind of imply that apnea is due to a lack of loving kindness? It's something physiological, isn't it? It's a physiological condition. Yeah. So yeah, I think, there are sleep disorders that are physiological, but I mean, I can see in myself when I'm angry, when I have angry thoughts and so on, it's hard to fall asleep, right? You can't fall asleep. You're tossing and turning, your mind keeps going over and over these angry thoughts. And so definitely a lack of loving kindness and excessive anger and irritation and hostility and so on, that will prevent you from peaceful sleep. And the second is they awake well. And volume 5 says, without groaning, yawning, and rolling over to go back to sleep. So again, the Buddha didn't really say that. Buddha just said, awaken peacefully. So I think, but yeah, the point is you sleep well and you wake up feeling refreshed and bright and ready to continue practicing. So you sleep well, you wake well. And then also number 3 is related to sleep. They do not experience nightmares, but have auspicious dreams, such as paying respects at a stupa or offering homage to the 3 jewels. So again, I think if you have a lot of anger, hostility, then that can lead to nightmares, bad dreams, yeah? Fighting in your dreams. If you have, especially if you can go to sleep with loving kindness, if you can have that in your mind as you're going to sleep, then I think your dreams will be nice rather than nightmares. Okay, then, so those 3 aren't mentioned by Nagarjuna. Number 4 is they are dear to humans who appreciate and respect them. So that's mentioned by Nagarjuna. You will be loved by humans. Number 5, they are dear to non-humans who are grateful for their serenity that brings peace among them. So here it just mentions gods, but I think animals too. Animals, other beings certainly will appreciate someone who's kind and loving. And number 6, deities protect them. Now that's mentioned by Nagarjuna, getting protection. Yeah, so the story I heard, there's a sutra called the Metta Sutra, very beautiful. And the story behind that is some monks, some of the Buddha's monks were kind of afraid to go and meditate in the forest because there's all these tigers and snakes and robbers and evil spirits, you know, and they would just sit out in the open under the trees, no, not a Foswell building to protect them. So they were kind of scared, and the Buddha taught them this practice of metta. Yeah, so if you practice metta, then you will be protected, you won't be harmed, and apparently it did work. If they really meditated on loving kindness, then that would protect them. And in more recent times, it may have been Achan Mun. I didn't read the whole of his book, but I think he would sometimes meditate in a cave, and there was also a tiger that would live in that cave. Does anyone remember? Yeah, there's that one. But okay, maybe it was someone else. A story of a monk in Thailand who shared a cave with a tiger, and the tiger never harmed him. There's another story. I was a Tibetan monk after escaping from India and was living in the jungle somewhere in India. And just a tiny little hut. And there was a cobra sleeping that would sleep under his bed, and another one behind the door. So yeah, if you really have genuine loving kindness, you don't need to be afraid of other beings. Okay, 7 is fire, poison, and weapons do not affect them. That's also mentioned in Nagarjuna. And then there's a story of a hunter who threw a spear at a cow who was nursing her calf. The spear bounced off the mother cow due to the power of her love that wished for the well-being of her calf. Okay, so there's a proof of that. Number 8, their minds are easily concentrated, not subject to sluggishness. And I was listening to some teachings by Ajahn Brahm about, he often teaches concentration meditation, and he said he notices that the meditators who have a lot of kindness, a lot of loving kindness, they get concentration more easily, which also makes sense. If we have a lot of anger and irritation, or irritated like me by every little noise, then that interrupts your concentration. So if you have a lot of loving kindness for sentient beings, then you won't be so irritated and you'll be able to concentrate better. And then number 9, the expression on their face is serene. Yeah, so you can see on the face and the eyes when someone has a lot of kindness. Number 10, they die without confusion, as if they were simply falling asleep. Yeah, so some people when they die are very agitated and frightened, and I think they can sometimes be having frightening visions, appearances in their mind that disturb them, possibly due to negative things they've done or negative attitudes they have. But someone who's very familiar with loving kindness, practicing that during their life, at the time of death, their mind will be peaceful. And number 11, if they do not attain a supramundane realization, like realization of emptiness, after death they will be born in the Brahma world, in the form realm. And then it says, meditators who have attained any of the 4 immeasurables, that is a mind of jhana with any of these 4 as its object, during their life will have the intention associated with this immeasurable arise as they die. This is an invariable karma that will ripen by the person being reborn in the corresponding level of the Brahma world. So yeah, there's correlation between the 4 measurables and the 4 jhanas. And so if you're not aiming for something higher, liberation, enlightenment, then you're creating the cause to be born in the form world. Okay, so now those are benefits. So it's good to meditate on those, to have more energy, enthusiasm to work on cultivating love. So then Lama Tsongkhapa says, if you have love, gods and human beings will love you. Who doesn't want to be loved? I mean, that's not the real purpose, but it's a side effect. And naturally gather around you. So you will be able to attract people. And of course, if you want to help people, you want them to be attracted. You don't want to scare them away. Since the victor defeated the hosts of Mara by the force of love, it is the best of protections, and so forth. So that's also, the time when the Buddha was sitting under the Bodhi tree and Mara was trying to attack with all these armies and weapons. The Buddha just meditated on love, and the weapons turned into flowers. The stages of meditation on love are to meditate initially on love for your friends and relatives, then for neutral persons, then for your enemies, and then for all sentient beings. So you go gradually, starting with easier objects. Don't start with your enemies, you'll probably give up. But start with people you already know, relatives, friends, people you can easily feel love for, and just meditate on love for them. Then move on to neutral persons who are a little more difficult, and then eventually enemies, and then all sentient beings. So you work gradually from easier to harder. The way to meditate on love is as follows. Just as compassion arises when you reflect again and again on how sentient beings have the suffering of suffering, likewise, you should reflect again and again on how sentient beings are devoid of happiness, in that they lack both contaminated and uncontaminated happiness. So contaminated happiness would be happiness of samsara. It's still mixed with afflictions, especially ignorance. But even though it's contaminated, still, that is what most people want and need in order to feel fulfilled. And so we do think about how they are lacking in that kind of happiness, lacking in food and clothes and shelter and access to good health care and education and jobs and friends and so on. So everyone is lacking something, some kind of happiness. Even the billionaires, they're probably not 100% happy all the time. They have a lot of worries and probably people trying to cheat them, trying to get the money from them, a lot of stress. So everyone has some kind of suffering and lack of happiness, lack of genuine happiness. And then uncontaminated happiness would be the happiness beyond samsara, happiness that comes from the wisdom realizing emptiness, so the happiness of liberation and enlightenment. So everyone lacks that. Once you have familiarized yourself with this, the wish for them to encounter happiness will arise naturally. In addition, having contemplated the various kinds of happiness, offer them to sentient beings. So that's a nice thing to do as well. Not just thinking, may they have all these happinesses, but imagine actually offering them, giving them these different kinds of happiness, and then seeing their joy, their happiness when they receive those happinesses. It kind of makes it more powerful. So the section is a little short here in volume 5. It has 12 pages on love. It's wonderful if you haven't read it yet, because it goes through some of the verses from this text by Nagarjuna called Tale of a Wish-Fulfilling Dream. I think we did, a couple of years ago, we did some of those in the course, Developing a Kind Heart. So there's a lot more material in there on how to meditate on love and cultivate love. Any questions before we move on? Compassion. Venerable Palma.
It's more like a comment. I have a bit of trouble with the word repaying people.
With what?
Repaying the kindness of
Repaying.
others.
Mm-hmm.
It gives a bit of a feeling like, so they did something for me, so I do something from them, and all the others, they can just...
Kind of like a business contract or something.
Yeah, it's also a bit like what I got from my Christian background. So God loves the people who are good and kind, and the others can go to hell.
Yeah. I mean, it is just a step on the way. It is a tool to help us boost our feelings of love and compassion and then bodhicitta. But it is just a natural feeling. Like, if somebody helps you out, if you're lost and, you meet somebody and they give you directions, to find your way to your destination, don't you feel just how kind that person is? And if they ask you for something, or you can see that they need help with something, your natural response would be, oh, let me help you. Yeah. So it's just kind of a natural feeling that we have.
Yeah, so it's probably just the word pay that triggers me in a way. And it's
Repay.
more like if you see somebody being kind, it's inspiring, and
Yeah.
you want to be kind as well.
Yeah. Well, find another word. Yeah. Don't worry about the words here. If you can find some other word, some other phrase that works for you, then yeah. But they do say that kindness is contagious. They've done research on this, and when people observe a person showing kindness, behaving kindly, they are more likely to do acts of kindness themselves. So that isn't repaying. That isn't, repaying, but just, oh, yeah, that's a good thing to do. I want to do that. And it kind of brings an immediate happiness, an immediate sense of joy and fulfillment. So, yeah. But I think here, yeah, because it's stressed that, well, yes, it is good to be kind, just for the sake of kindness, but it's more than that. They have actually been kind to you. And so I think it's, the other week, Tenzin was saying that in the Theravada tradition, you meditate on how everyone is your child, something like that. You think of everyone as your child. And that's really beautiful. But there's a difference between being a child and being seeing yourself as the parent of the child and seeing yourself as the child of a parent. Yeah? Because being the parent is a little bit like a position of superiority. Yeah, maybe a little condescending. But if you think of yourself as a child, especially a very young, small, helpless child, being taken care of by your mother and your father, and then everyone has been that, it's much more powerful and maybe humble, as well as a humility there, that you may not have if you think of others just, I am like the parent of others. Does that make sense, what I'm saying? I think it's good to do both, because Nagarjuna also talks in that text, Tale of a Wish-Fulfilling Dream. He also mentions everybody has been my child. So I have also been the mother to everybody. And I find that really powerful to think of, that I have, held every sentient being in my arms and regarded them as the most dear and precious, beautiful thing in the universe. So I've had that experience. So that's really helpful to think about. But it's a different thing to think of yourself as this child who's so needy, so dependent, and they were there for you. I think it does bring up this sense, a stronger sense of, I must take care of them. Yeah. So use whatever word is more appropriate, more comfortable for you. But
I think one of the difficulties that I've had since I first heard about these meditations on love is that, and Venerable used to say it years ago, is that sometimes wishing love and happiness for others means that you may not be included in that love, that they may go off the fulfillment and joy, and how to accept the fact that you may not be part of the equation on wishing this for someone that you care about, that they actually leave your life, that they go, so you get to see I got to see the attachment about, well, I love you, but I'm hoping to be able to share this happiness I'm wanting you to have with you, when in fact, sometimes they go off and take off or say, yep, I'm going to do something different. Thank you very much.
That's what kids do.
Right, so this is the mother-child thing maybe, but I found that extremely a challenging point in trying to cultivate this mind, is to realize that doesn't mean that we get included in the deal.
Yeah. I mean, the most ideal love, although it's very hard, is unconditional love with no strings attached, no expectations of anything in return from this other person, just giving without asking or expecting anything. That's really hard, but that's our self-centeredness that wants something in return, that wants some pleasure, some happiness, some satisfaction for ourselves. Yeah, that's what mothers and fathers have to go through, and their kids leave home and start their own lives and get very busy with their own lives, and the parents are, just not a big part of that anymore. So Venerable Sangye has a question, comment?
Going back to Venerable Palmo's comment about meditating on repaying their kindness, I think it's important to remember that this step is preceded by the step of realizing that everybody's been our mother. So we're talking about everybody. It's not like, oh, these people have been kind and these people we're excluding. We're talking about everybody. And it's also preceded by the equanimity meditations. So, and you could say reciprocation or something, another word, but it's not exclusionary, because it's already to another point of that, before that. And also what you said about being inspired by people's kindness, that's an important thing to remember for in reverse, that when we do kind acts, we affect the world. People are affected by the things that we do, and that's part of how our practice affects society and other sentient beings.
Venerable Kunga.
In the last step, we cultivate love for all sentient beings. Would we include ourselves here?
Yeah, actually, I was going to comment on that after we go through compassion, but we could do it now. Yeah, you notice that it's talking about others, but not about oneself. There's no mention here of cultivating loving love and compassion for oneself. So traditionally, that isn't mentioned as far as I have encountered in the Tibetan tradition. And I think it is in the Theravada tradition. I don't know. Yeah. Also traditionally, in the traditional teachings, not just contemporary ones. Yeah. So as has been pointed out, the Dalai Lama came to know that there are people in the West who hate themselves. And so he has understood that. So when he teaches, he usually mentions compassion and love for yourself. And in volume 5, there is quite a bit of material on that. It seems like maybe the Tibetans didn't need that. Maybe they didn't have self-hatred and low self-esteem, and they felt good about themselves. They didn't need an extra step to cultivate love for themselves. But those of us who lack love and compassion for ourselves, then it is good to include ourselves in that. So there's quite a bit of material in volume 5 about that. Maybe next week I can bring some material from that. Because, I think it makes a lot of sense that if you don't love yourself, if you don't have compassion for yourself, it's usually because you're judgmental. You see things in yourself you don't like and you beat yourself up for. And so if you're like that with yourself, you'll be like that with others. When you see those same qualities, behaviors in other people, you will also be critical, judgmental, have aversion. And so not loving yourself, not having compassion for yourself is a hindrance to having genuine love and compassion for all other beings. So that makes complete sense.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about an interview with Thupten Jinpa, who made a training program for Westerners about love. And I have followed one of these programs, and they start out with someone you easily love.
Someone who what?
Who you easily love, a good friend, a family member, and then you go meditate on love for yourself. Mm-hmm. So you don't start with yourself because it's too difficult. And then you go back to the people you love, you go back and forth a bit, and then you take the other steps. Yeah. And it seems to be quite successful for Westerners.
Yeah. I think it was Ajahn Brahm talking about this, and he said that you can try different ways, but you might be the hardest person to love. And so you might put yourself at the end rather than at the beginning. And that makes sense, if you cultivate love. He says, start with puppies and kittens. Start with something easy. So for him, and I think for a lot of people, little cute little puppies and kittens, it's easy to get a feeling of love. So start with that, then think of someone you like, and then gradually move on. And then at the end, after you've already been cultivating love for all these other beings, it might be easier to cultivate love for yourself. So I suggest to people that you try different ways and see what works best for you. But yeah, it is important to include yourself in there. Okay, so we've come to the end of our time. So next week will be January already? Whoa. January 2025. My goodness, what happened to this year? Goes so fast. Okay, so we'll stop and dedicate the merit.
May the spiritual teachers who lead me on the sacred path, and the spiritual friends who practice it, have long life. May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the venerable spiritual mentors be stable, and their virtuous actions spread in the 10 directions. May the light of Lobsang's teachings dispelling the darkness of the beings in the 3 worlds always increase. Idam Guru Rana Mandalakam Niryatayami. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Before you go, I just want to ask something, because yesterday when Robin, we had a refuge ceremony, and she... No, I don't want to formally, just